Needless to say, this move that has thrown careers, companies and even Indo-US ties into uncertainty. Now, whether this is a temporary shock or a long-term setback, I have with me panelists joining us this evening to understand the consequences of this move. I'd like to first introduce Neeti Sharma, CEO of Team Digital. Mr. Prabhu Dayal, who's a former diplomat and shortly from now will also be joined by Dr. Tejinder Pal Singh Nalwa. He's an immigration law expert and he will explain to us what this move means in its entirety. But before that, Neeti Sharma, I'd like to come to you to understand what is possibly on the mind of a US employer at the moment. Client concerns, project delays, a heavy fee that they may have to pay, or possibly how it's going to impact future hirings and talent pipeline.
Yeah, thanks, Vaisa, for having me here. I think this is very disruptive for now, at least, the way we're looking at it, right? Because, but let's say Amazon has 10,000 H-1B visa workers on the payroll in America. How would they operate without talent, without that level of talent and volume of talent in the US is a big question. So obviously the ones who are there already don't get impacted, at least in the near future. They'll probably get impacted when renewals kick in, but they will not be able to hire newer people, especially from other countries at junior levels. They will then be very selective and bring in people which have super specialist skills, who can only probably pay for the 100,000 additional fee every month, which means that ROI has to be calculated for every H-1B visa that is going to get bought in from here on. It's going to be disruptive also because America by itself currently does not have the volume of tech talent that US needs as we speak. Yes, there are talks about bringing freshers, train them, but its productivity gets impacted. So the global companies have two ways to look at it. One, I either absorb the cost, or second is I probably bring in freshers, train them, and then make them productive. Either ways, their cost structures are going to go all over the place, which would also mean that their goods, the cost of their goods are going to be increased, which would mean consumers will have to end up paying the additional price. So net net, it doesn't make sense for the global companies to, at least for America, to even look at creating an embargo sort of a situation, at least immediately. The Indian IT industries, who's also have many H-1B visa employees based out of the US, and that the reasons clearly are so that they stay on site, close to the customer, understand the requirements, are flexible to make changes that the customers need. Now, if we have to look at bringing all of them back home, two things: would customers be comfortable working with offshore employees all the time? It may not be the case. Secondly, how soon can we deploy, have enough resources in India to give them workplaces, residentials, schools, so it's a whole lot of disruption that's happening in the near future. I think in the long run, things may work out very differently for India. But right now, I think it's a very scary situation for people who are either studying in the US, looking for jobs, or waiting for H-1B. And I know a lot of people have come on vacations right now because this is the school holiday time.
Yeah.
If they're not able to go back by Sunday, US time, it's going to be disaster for them.
Exactly, and we'll talk about that more. But before that, I'd like to bring in Mr. Dayal. Given the fact that Indians are the largest holders of the H-1B visa, do you see further straining of Indo-US ties in this regard?
Well, first of all, let me say that I agree entirely with what Neeti Sharma has said regarding the consequences in the near term and in the longer term.
Okay.
Of course, this will impact Indo-US ties because Indian workers are going to be very adversely affected, particularly in the near term. Let me say that with Indian nationals making up the largest percentage of H-1B visa recipients, the new fees will significantly limit opportunities for Indian professionals seeking to work in the US. And naturally, this will have an impact on how the Indian government looks at these matters. Indian and US companies that rely on H-1B visa workers will face an enormous increase in costs, which will likely affect their hiring strategies And by restricting access to global talent, as Niti Sharma pointed out, the US will stifle its own innovation and competitive edge, particularly in fields like technology and AI. Now, India will have to take into account the fact that Indian IT firms had already begun to reduce their reliance on H-1B visas over the last several years
Right.
by hiring more locally. Now, the new fees are expected to accelerate this trend, and Indian companies may intensify efforts to diversify their markets beyond the US and focus on regions with less restrictive immigration policies, such as Europe and other parts of Asia. Now, the Indian government will have to assist such companies in their endeavors in this regard because the prohibitive cost may cause companies to move more high value work and jobs to India, in fact, and the government will have to make this possible. So, in this sense, let me say that the restrictive US policy could turn India's brain drain into a brain gain. And this is what the government must try and ensure. Now, the fee creates a barrier for global talent, which will severely impact innovation and growth in the US. And the highly skilled Indian workers who are unable to go to the US now or forced to return should be helped to build innovative startups and advance India's domestic tech sector instead. So, by slamming the door on skilled talent, the US could inadvertently push the next wave of labs, patents, innovation, and startups to Indian cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Gurgaon. So the government must try and make sure that it creates the right opportunities for all such people. And for instance, the finest doctors, engineers, scientists, innovators who go from India to the United States should be given now the opportunity to contribute to their own country's growth and progress towards the Viksit Bharat vision. So the H-1B visa change should now be looked at very seriously by government and in such a way that it benefits the Indian economy instead of impacting adversely on all these workers and skilled people.
Absolutely.